Welcome, Black Hollywood Live fans. On today's Fit Club, we talk diet and exercise with fitness expert IFBB pro Annie Parker. Stay tuned for more.
You're tuned into Black Hollywood Live, Fit Club.
Hey, welcome, Black Hollywood Live fans. I'm your host, Shaka Smith, and we have our guest, Annie Parker, IFBB pro. She's just walked in. Come on up, come on up. So good to see you.
Hi. So nice to see you.
Get in there, get in there.
All right.
That's on time.
Yeah, that was like the most on time. That was
Oh,
good.
man.
Put these bad boys on. And we are ready to start the show.
Look at that.
My name is Shaka Smith. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Shaka Strong. I'm joined here by a guest host, Curran Blevins. Tell them where they can find you.
You can find me everything at Curran Blevins, CurranBlevins. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and my website.
Yeah, and you may recognize him. He was here before, the all-natural athlete. Thank you for being here again.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
And of course, we have IFBB pro Annie Parker. How
Hi.
you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Where can they find
I
you
love
online?
the applause. It's Sassy Fit Chick. All one word, Sassy Fit Chick on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, everything.
Awesome.
Look at that.
So we have a couple of interesting stories as we get to you. And so one of these interesting stories, I get a lot of questions from parents and how to motivate kids to eat better. And so everyone's got different strategies. Some people hide the food, the good food, and make a broccoli chocolate cake, right? Some people do bribery. And recently, a study had shown that bribery worked for kind of prolonging habits, but it didn't do so in the long run. And that, in fact, monetary incentives can actually decrease how much you work towards something. And so they're saying to build a really good relationship with food. What I was wondering, do you have any tips and tricks for your clients that you try? Do you try to bribe them? Do you try to hide a workout in a workout, or
That's so interesting. I just try to stress balance. I don't think it's terrible for kids to or for parents to take their kids to fast food or something, but make it once a month. Like my clients, if they eat clean, I always tell them 85% of the time, I am not mad about the other 15%. It's kind of the same thing with kids. If they're taught right off the bat that the good foods, the junk foods, the cookies and stuff like that is just a once in a while thing, it's not something we eat all the time, then, I think they things are very habitual, they're very patterned. So it's kind of whatever patterns you're instilling in them now, that's going to carry over.
Yeah. Do you have any?
Do you think instilling good, meaning a better version of junk food, would be best in terms of instead of having a cookie, like an Oreo cookie, making some sort of hey, almond version of banana or something, like an all raw or all vegan cookie where it's man, that's only 30 calories versus 684 and it's really bad for you. What are your thoughts about that in terms of starting them young on that so they never, I guess they're going to find out in 7th grade.
Yeah.
But it ought to be a habit, right?
Check this out. Yeah.
I mean, I always, my parents always give me veggies and stuff like that, so I always grew up liking them, I feel like if you just give them to them just the way they are, natural state, when they're younger, and hey, this is a treat, this is yummy, I would go out in the garden with my grandparents and stuff like that. That was seen as something fun to do. So if you make the food fun, you don't have to hide it. If you're hiding it, that implies that it's not good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, because I still wanted a Big Mac sometimes in high school, even though I ate relatively clean and healthy and stuff like that. And even now, sometimes I just really want dessert.
That's awesome, because one of the ways they say to combat this is really to model for your kids. And sometimes our own biases model it for them. If we're oh, I don't like broccoli, but we should really eat it, they're going to still feel oh, I don't like broccoli.
Totally.
But you want to have frequent family meals. And one thing I found interesting is they found you have to ask kids sometimes 8 to 15 times, toddlers, before they accept something. So sometimes as parents you get discouraged after 5 or 6 times. You're well, but they need to be asked 8 to 15. Do you get that with clients, or you need to really hammer home a point and they finally get it?
Yeah. I mean, I like to think they're adults and they can,
8 to 15 times.
Yeah. Come on.
It's funny because when I did get my master's in nutrition, I worked with children, but I worked with sick children.
Yeah.
So, it's a little bit of a different story. But, yeah, it's so funny. Everything's a habit. This is all changing mindsets. So that's kids too. And kids actually, something I learned that was so interesting is kids and toddlers, like, they soak in the most between like 1 and 5.
Really?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even think of those ages as like the time when they soak in the most information that they retain in life. But yeah, so it's like whatever you're doing during that time, it is super important. You're thinking
The
like,
foundation.
oh, they're
Yeah.
they're babies, they're not going to remember, but they do.
They don't remember Disneyland, but they'll remember what
Right.
you're putting in their mouth.
Yeah.
Subconsciously. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
One of the big things we always get, we've got a great story about what you eat before, during, and after a workout. So I know these are probably big questions you get all the time. And so we have this nutritionist, I think it's over at University of Massachusetts, professor of nutrition. And she says before a workout, you want to like have very little carbs, just, you know, a little bit.
Little something.
Yeah, a little something, that are low in fat and like low to moderate in protein. And that you need this for glycogen for fuel. And something we always talk about here a little bit is a fasted workout. So what is your idea? Because I think she actually said she wasn't a fan of the fasted workout. It does give you ketosis, and so you drop the fat, but apparently that might lead to kidney problems later on in life if you do it too consistently.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think because the body is so adaptable, even if I do fasted cardio sometimes, I don't do it all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always switching stuff up because the body adapts so quickly to whatever you're doing that eventually, like, that's where everyone has plateau problems. But I personally like doing, like, maybe 20 to 25 minutes of fasted cardio just because, like, you know, if I do it first thing in the morning before I'm really awake and before I have my coffee, I'm less likely to get lazy. And, like, you know, because cardio is the thing I like least.
Yeah.
But I would absolutely never do a workout fasted.
Yeah.
I need the food. I'm not huge. I'm not one of those people that, like, you know, thinks people need a lot of carbs or anything like that. I think everybody can be relatively lower carb. You know what I mean? But I don't do.
And so you're not doing endurance work either. Like you're not going for an hour on the treadmill.
Right,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's the thing. Yeah, I don't think unless you're like an endurance runner or like some kind of like
Marathons, triathlons.
Olympian, like real Olympian. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that you need like the high. You know, I have some girls come to me and I give them, you know, maybe like 100 grams of carbs or something like that, and they're like, no, like I have to have like. You know, it's like, what are you eating this for?
Yeah,
You know, because yeah, so I think a little bit of carbs before, you know, some carbs after, and I would say the majority of my carbs during the day are right before and right after the workout, and that's about it. But
Yeah.
I don't do faster workouts at all.
Just continuing that aspect, what kind of supplements would you say, are there supplements you take before, supplements you take after? Do you recommend certain supplements, you know?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Like, I'm sponsored by EAS, so I take their supplements, but and they're very aware that I'm very honest with what I take and what I don't take. I don't use all their products because I don't take a lot of supplements at all. I take BCAAs and then something called Muscle Armor, which is just basically like a glutamine arginine after
Oh.
for
Like a recovery, yeah.
So it's like I don't even really do a pre-workout 99.9% of the time. So
Yeah, and if your viewers out there or listeners, glutamine, arginine are essential amino acids that will
Yeah.
help you repair and recover with your muscle. And so do you do anything during the for me, I'd like to do like an apple or an orange in the middle of a workout. And that's what they actually recommended here, so I was like, score.
A little bit of that.
Yeah, I haven't, no, but I guess like my workouts generally, because I like to split up my cardio, and you know, I have breakfast right after my cardio, and then I go do my workout, which only lasts like an hour to an hour and a half.
Okay.
You know, later, I never really feel the need.
Yeah, my workouts are like 2.5 hours.
I know, beast over here. But I will, you know, I'll finish my workout with like 20 minutes of cardio, so I am hungry by the time I'm done, but I never really stop in the middle.
For the last year, I've intermittent fasted, and I strongly
Oh, the entire year you've been fasted.
Since my weight loss transformation, so it's
Yeah.
almost over, I would say almost 2 years at this point, but 16 and 8, I don't eat for 16 hours, and I eat for 8 hours. So every single workout I've done for the last year and a half, fasted.
This was after
Really?
your weight
Yeah.
loss transformation.
100%. Well, that's what started everything.
And every single workout's been fasted?
Every single one. So I basically...
Has been fasted?
100%.
Oh, wow.
I mean, at 12 noon, I'm going to the gym, fasted from the day before at 8 p.m. And
Wow,
so
that's
basically,
interesting.
you know, there's ups and downs of that too. In terms
Yeah.
of there's testosterone. It's actually
And just fatigue, aren't you just tired?
well, yeah, but it's like my pre-workout is black coffee.
Oh, okay.
So I'll
gotcha.
go to the gym. You know, you're allowed to drink black coffee, tea, water.
Yeah.
And one of the number one proponents of intermittent fasting is HGH in men and
Yeah.
testosterone spikes in men.
Yeah.
And fat burning and obviously all those.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I actually stopped doing that, I would say like a week or two ago, just toying with it. I forget to eat breakfast because I'm so ingrained
Yeah.
not to eat breakfast now
Yeah.
that I'll have like a scoop of protein and some almonds and some coconut oil before I go to the gym, and I'll like throw up a PR and be like, "Boof," yes, like, you
So-
know,
oh, so-
because I've realized at this point that I've just plateaued all my lifts, you know,
Yeah.
all my lifts at that point because it's just, I'm literally like a shell. There are some times, you know, where I'll go to throw a power clean and I'll get lightheaded because there is nothing in my
Yeah.
system. So I've kind of started to reboot that. So I'm very, you know, I'm stoked to hear it. Maybe some carbs, oatmeal or something.
Yeah,
What-
yeah. I like really simple things. I'm not really big on oatmeal. I know it's like kind of like one of the fitness foods, you know. Some rice, you know, maybe some potato if I have some cooked.
Yeah.
Yeah, like really.
BCAs
really
though before?
I actually, because I have a lot of trouble drinking enough water during the day, I pretty much sip on them all day long.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that's another big thing for recovery after workout. We always talk about protein and carbs. We don't talk about like hydration.
Yeah.
It's so important to refuel, like get fluids in you afterwards. I think it's neglected by a lot of people in the fitness industry.
I think if you buy a really nice water bottle, you'll want to fill it more. That's something that I've started to do where it's like, you know, you buy a nice water bottle, you're like, man, I don't want to let this $30 water bottle go to the waste. I need to put water in it.
I know.
So another topic I think was interesting that it's about longevity in the fitness industry, right? So
Lifestyle.
Yeah.
So we're talking about antioxidants here. And so, do you do anything antioxidant-wise that you think like has helped you like just look amazing for as long as you've been looking amazing?
Well, that's so interesting because I'm actually writing an entire diet. You know how some people like that you got the kids that write the ebooks on If It Fits Your Macros diets, or they write about the ketogenic diet. You know, but those are diets that already exist, and I'm kind of trying to create a diet that you know doesn't completely exist yet, but is an anti-aging diet. So you know, helps with free radicals, helps with anti-aging. Yeah, I mean, I eat grapefruit every day, pretty much.
grapefruit.
Yeah, yep, and. Yeah, if I don't have grapefruit, I have oranges, but you know, like some of them are a little bit acidic. But yeah, I think just like making sure you get your vitamins. It's actually so difficult to get your vitamins now from just your foods because, you know, the soil that we have now is not the soil that we had 20 and 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So, you know, our fruits and vegetables aren't as nutrient rich. So to get a really good quality vitamin is really important. And yeah, I think that's part of it. I think like hydration's another part of it. I still do take in, you know, even though I stay away from sugar because sugar is really,
No good.
really damaging to the skin. It actually ages you faster. You know, it damages cells, like stuff like that. So that's a really big one. But I don't stay away from fruit to that note because some people like are afraid of fruit because of the sugars in them.
Yeah,
That's a good sugar.
That's what I was told when I kind of like in 2011 when I was in the fitness industry. I used fruit as like a mainstay to like keep myself lean and full. And people were like, "Oh, you can't eat fruit." I was like, "Well, it's working." So, but yeah, they had some really great tips about what to do to kind of like avoid oxidation and boost your antioxidant levels. One of them is avoid high glycemic foods. Do you guys use the glycemic index for your diets at all?
I don't know. I'm kind of a creature of habit, so I eat the same stuff.
Yeah. The same 10 things. It's like a wheel. Which of the 10 is, you know?
And of course, they said limit your processed meats, your processed foods, limit
Totally.
red meat.
Totally.
Here's one thing I've been guilty of: don't reuse your cooking oil, and I've reused cooking oil before.
That's kind of an old school thing. I was actually.
But I mean, just because I'm lazy,
Yeah, well-
it's still in the pan.
My whole family still does that. Like I think that's just kind of like I think that's something that's been around forever. But remind me what you just said.
Reusing the cooking oil.
The one
Do you got
before that. I mean, no, I don't reuse the cooking oil at all.
limit processed meats, limit red meat?
Yeah, like so the red meat part depends on your blood type for me because when I was doing my master's, I studied all these different diets and like all of the diets out of all of them, they only work maybe like for 50% of people, and the one that worked for more like 85% of people was the blood type diet, just because it's a little more personalized.
Yeah.
And like O blood types like me, I don't know what you guys are, like we need red meat.
That's what I was told, but I don't have any now.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my muscles fill up. Like,
Yeah.
I get a little bit leaner after I have red meat. I
Yeah.
re-energize. I need the iron. If I'm not having red meat, I have to take an iron supplement.
I have to research this now.
Yeah, because then A blood types, like, they cannot have red meat. Like, their belly will bloat. They'll get really gassy, stuff like that. So that part depends. Processed meats and foods, no. Like, that's like a huge...
And I think before a show, before I compete on stage, I guess I might have noticed a difference of being a slightly leaner, slightly bigger with red meat. But it's
Yeah.
been a minute, so
Yeah.
I'll have to get back to you on that one.
I always did steak the night before. They would
Yeah.
like take steak away from me for weeks, and then all of a sudden the night before, and it's like,
Yeah, all of a
oh,
sudden,
there it
you're
is.
full and nice. So, speaking of that, I want people to know, like, what is it you go through for a competition, you know? Because we have fitness people, but here you're a pro, you're on stage, you're competing at a professional level, which for the viewers out there, you compete on an amateur level, and then you qualify, you have to get top 5 in your division, you qualify to compete on a national level, and there, depending on what show you're at, you have to get, like, top 2 to 3 in, like, maybe 1,000-person classes to get your pro card. So you got your pro card in 2014, right?
Yep, at North Americans.
So what does it take to look good on that day on stage? Not just what it takes to look good every day, because that's a little bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh.
How long's
I
your
was-
prep? Are you like, how many weeks are you prepping for?
I was doing 20 shows a year, you know, for the last 5 years, and luckily because I've always stayed relatively healthy, I only really had between 5 and 10 pounds lose at any given time. So is that?
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, is that me?
Of course.
And that's where, you know, I don't recommend anyone, you know, guys are different, but for girls, you know, you see some of the girls sometimes they have 20 pounds to lose every show and stuff like that. I don't recommend that for long periods of time, if at all. But, you know, luckily I didn't really go up past my stage weight too much, so I would do a full 10 to 12 week prep, but I didn't want it to be super difficult, and I didn't want it to be unhealthy, because like my whole thing was always health first, even though competing is seen as an unhealthy thing, and there are certain things that I did that, you know, were unhealthy and that I found them to be unhealthy later, and is part of the reason why I stopped.
So
but-
consistency is key.
Yeah.
Not floating like.
No. Like, and that's
Very-
you're just hurting yourself. You know, I see some girls say, "Oh, I have to put on all this weight to bulk." You know, I built muscle while I was doing 5 shows a year. You know, there was
Yeah.
never a bulk, like nothing
Yeah.
like that. And unless you're like figure or physique, which I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about, like there is no big point to gaining a ton of weight like that.
Yeah.
And
It's
she
not good
competes
for
in the
you.
bikini division, which is sort of like a more of a beach look, bikini look.
Yeah.
So it's not.
I mean,
the
they've gotten away
muscular
from
they have.
that a little bit, and
Yeah.
they've gone towards a more muscular look. But yeah, like especially when we were
Yeah,
competing, when I
exactly.
started, it was definitely like beach babe, fitness model, like yeah.
Yeah, I used to water deplete. I want to say one of the not the first show. I didn't know what water depletion was, but like show 2 and 3 or 4. You know, I went to like maybe I want to say I did like a 8-hour water cut, and then people were like, no, you should be 24 hours, and then a 24-hour water cut for this my 3rd show, which was actually a blessing because I felt like such crap. I was like, there's no way I'm intended to compete like this.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I normally cut water for, I would say 12.
Yeah, I'll do it
12
the
hours.
night before.
Night before,
But 24 hours,
Yeah.
you just go on stage and you just.
Su- Such a different world than from what I come from. It's just like
Yeah.
like the stuff that you guys do to your body. I'm
but I think-
mind blown about it.
But
Like
it
and
was
the
little
determination.
things like that, because I was always, you know, a natural athlete. I tried to stay as natural as possible. Like I said, I don't even do pre-workouts or
Yeah.
anything like that. But, you know, even just cutting your water for that 12 hours.
Yeah.
I can
Like,
imagine. Yeah.
you know, and as a nutritionist, you hear bathroom problems, you know, period problems, everything else. But it would literally sometimes be like a full week before I could go to the bathroom again, just because you depleted your body
Yeah.
of so much water.
Yeah, and-
Like,
yeah.
and that's like, even though that's something so simple, like it's just not healthy.
It's good for people to know because, you know, I think a lot of times we see fitness models at their best, you know. You see them
Yeah.
on stage and you go, oh man, I'm trying to get that body. But it wasn't healthy and it probably hurts at that moment. You know?
Yeah. And there were, I remember, I missed my pro card by a point at Nationals the year before I got my pro card, and I literally thought I was dying the night before I went on stage, and everyone's like, "That's the best you've ever looked," and I'm like, "It's the worst I've ever felt."
Exactly. You
Yeah.
want to make the two meet
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
That was my goal. I was like, how do I feel this way but look this way? There's
Yeah.
got to be a way.
Yeah.
Tell me, how do you stay motivated? Because you're doing 20 shows all these years. How do you just keep yourself going?
I just like to have, you know, I talked about at the beginning of the year, I never set resolutions. I don't like that word even. I always just set goals. Even if I have small goals throughout the year, I have big goals throughout the year. You know, every month I'll set some new goals, whether it's a photo shoot or, you know, something. I just have something to work toward. It doesn't necessarily have to be a show. And that's what you know, a lot of my clients are not competitors. Like, you know, they have actual health issues that we need to work towards. So whatever the goal is, you're working toward it. And I think that's just having something in mind to work toward is important. So I actually, the show that I did this past October, the Ferrigno Legacy, the Bikini Pro. That was my last show. I said I'm not. I mean, I may change my mind in a few years, but as of right now, I have no plans of competing again as a pro, just because I think, like I said a few minutes ago, the look that I had when I went pro and the look that they were going for a couple of years ago, like when I first started, is just very different than the look they have now, and almost impossible at a pro level to do naturally. And I, because I do some commercial work and stuff like that, I didn't ever want to mess with my face, which a lot of the supplements can do.
I wanted to, for a lot of women, especially for men too, actually, but putting yourself out there, especially whether it's Instagram or whatever, but you formally put yourself out there to be judged. You're turning around. How do you cope with that and body image issues? And I think that would help even people just every day, just when they're on Instagram trying to figure that out.
Sure, and I mean, I always say I'm super grateful because I had already, had a career. I was older when I started competing. All of that, and I was very confident in myself, more so actually as I went on competing, and unfortunately that doesn't happen for all women or men, if you have to just have really thick skin. I've done a pro show before where I got off stage and I was the first one in line to get my feedback after, and the judge was like, "That was the most horrible you've ever looked. You don't even look good for an amateur." And they'll
You're wearing nothing at the time.
Yeah, and I'm a very strong-minded person, so I kind of looked at him like, "Don't you ever speak to me like that again." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I walked away thinking, if he said that to someone, to a girl, not as strong mentally as I am, that would really be a shame. You know what I mean? So a little more care needs to be taken with these things, but I think you just really, if you're going to put yourself out there, you have to have a really thick skin, and honestly, this sounds horrible, and this is probably why I don't have, some of the following that other people have, but I don't even read a lot of the comments.
Which is probably the smart thing, because sometimes,
because I don't, some of the things, and luckily I've been really grateful to say that I really haven't had a lot of negative comments or anything like that on my stuff, on my social media. Mostly probably because I keep mine pretty PG-13, where a lot of people don't. The more you go the other way towards the R-rated, the more you open yourself up to
some of the
negative readings. Yeah, and that's just kind of a personal preference thing. But the worst of my pictures are just me in a bikini, and I'm confident enough to do that. So if you're going to be doing that, you just have to be confident enough to take whatever comes at you after.
Yeah, the confidence, I think, and the motivation also stem together, because when you're setting goals, you're not going to worry about what's over here. You're not going to stress too much and go, listen, you can think whatever you want. I'm going to focus more on myself and how I'm getting to that next goal.
Totally.
With your goal setting, do you set mini goals in front of the big goal? Is it one big goal? I just would love to hear you kind of talk more about that. Hey,
sure.
When I set out to be a pro, I went A to B to C, and then that was level 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's funny because my friends actually pick on me. I have my little day planner, and I old school write it down. I think there's something that really something to be said about writing everything down.
The connection with the mind.
Yeah. And somebody actually said it kind of triggers something in
Couldn't
your
agree
brain
more.
the minute you write it down and see it on paper. So I can't write my schedule in my phone or write my goals in my phone. I literally have to write it on paper and look at it all the time. And so it's kind of when I was competing, it was okay, small goal, I'm going to prep for this show, big goal, I'm going to get my pro card. It's kind of but even for this year, it's okay, I want to try to, my big goal is to do a skincare commercial or skincare line, something like that, that kind of goes along with, I love the idea of being ageless, nobody, if you take care of yourself and you feel good on the inside, you feel good on the outside, nobody really even knows how old you are. And you know what I mean? When I tell people how old I am, they're like, what? And I like that. It's fun. And I think everyone should have that, feel good, feel ageless, and, to kind of have a diet and a skincare routine that goes along with that. So, one of my big goals, as a spokesmodel and a commercial person or face, was to kind of be the face of one of those skincare lines
awesome.
that I believe in. Yeah.
It almost seems like a natural evolution, because at least for me, because I know you worked in the pharmaceutical industry, then you got your master's in nutrition, and I'm that's almost, to me it's antithetical, but
Yeah.
How did you make that switch, or from really, I guess, being preventative versus
Yeah,
working in
it's
pharma?
It was so funny. Like, I got my undergrad in marketing and communications, and my first job ever was just for a few months in like real estate, actually. And my boss there was like, you know, I would always talk about health and stuff because I was a gymnast. I was always like really active. And she was like, you should go into pharmaceuticals. Like, my boss was kind of like, you need to get out of here. You need to. She's like, let me make some calls. So next thing I knew, I was training for a pharmaceutical job. And, you know, it's all exciting when you're like 22, 23, fresh out of college, all this stuff. And it's money and a car and a computer and all that. And it's easy to get caught up in all that. And then, like, I was just talking about this today. You go into a doctor's office and you see how quickly they're rushing. You know, this is mostly primary care. Later, I worked with specialty, which was interesting too. But even in specialty, they're getting people in, they're getting people out. The way government insurance is now, they only get like an average of 10 minutes per patient.
Wow.
So just to see enough patients to like make what they need to make to pay their rent for the office and all this, and pay their student loans and all this stuff. And it's like this cycle where they just have to hurry up and get people in and get people out. And you don't have time to talk about lifestyle, diet, nothing like that. You have time to hand them drugs.
Yeah.
So there's no preventative discussion in there. There's no like, hey, let's try to fix this with the food that's going in your mouth rather than
very
take
few.
this.
And I would talk to doctors about that because I was almost more interested in that than what I was selling at the time. And I was selling antidepressants, antibiotics, Levitra at 23 years old for erectile dysfunction. Like, it was the stupidest stuff. But yeah, and by 24, 25, like I literally morally like couldn't do it, and I started my master's in nutrition while I was still doing pharmaceutical sales, with the end point of just stopping that and trying to fix it.
What company would you want to be the face for? Or because I know like there's so many like bad pharmaceutical companies, like secret hidden things,
and
like,
not even like a pharmaceutical company. Like, I'm talking about like basic, like, you know, people ask me all the time, like, what do you use on your face and stuff like that. I use basic old like Neutrogena with no dyes and no, you know, they have like a Neutrogena like clean line or something like that with no dyes. Like, I've always had really sensitive, very allergic skin, so I couldn't ever use a lot of different things. A lot of the more expensive products I can't use, so it's almost like the cheaper the better for me. So like even just like stuff like that I use, that I believe in and stuff.
I'm still learning more about parabens.
Yeah, parabens, yeah.
You know, because I go home and my girlfriend's like, here's a new toothpaste, here's a new deodorant, here's a new soap. And I was just like, what is this? It's not Old Spice. I've been using Old Spice since I was 14, you know? And so what are your take on that, even, in terms of in that world?
It's interesting. Yeah, I just, I try to get stuff as basic and as few ingredients as possible. You know, it's not
food and stuff you're putting on your body. Right? Live by that.
It's always just worked better for me. And I was just having a conversation, like I started to catch a cold the other day that everybody was getting, and I go straight for homeopathic even in that area. Like, the simpler the better. And maybe it's just because my body is naturally clean like that, and I just react faster and better to stuff like that. But I think everyone is capable of that. Just, you know,
conditioning
basic
yourself.
stuff.
It takes a while to mentally get used to it. Yeah.
Totally. Everything is mental. And I almost believe, you know, with my nutrition clients, I have to do just as much mental work with them as like actual
therapist / fitness expert.
Yeah.
What can we expect from you coming up this year?
That's so exciting. Yeah, I mean, I'm working on a book right now, like I said, working on a diet that really kind of, everything we eat right now, all the processed food, it causes a lot of inflammation in the body. And that's one of the things that ages us faster. And, you know, on top of all the overstimulation that we have going on right now with everything and all of that, it's just kind of, we're wired to almost be sick and age faster.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of like what we've been talking about the last few minutes, getting back to bare basics, you know, teaching people how to meditate and take time out for themselves, teaching them how to eat just like basic foods. And you know, it's almost like the U.S. has made it harder to eat healthy foods because, you know, it's more expensive. Like so just kind of, I want to teach people how to be basic and healthy, you know, in the right ways. In the right ways, yeah. Basic is cool. In the right ways. So just kind of like bringing it back to like what it used to be, you know. And I think it's just kind of a little bit old school.
It's refreshing to hear that. It's refreshing to hear like that's growing because of the supply and demand of unhealthy food. is like this.
The
right
worst
now.
is going to
Yeah.
this grocery store and seeing like strawberries so cheap, and then you go around, the organic ones are like $5 more. You're like, no.
But it's changing because I'm
Yeah.
from Pennsylvania, and so I go and visit my family, and I go to the local place,
Yeah.
and now there's there's 3 aisles of
Yeah.
literally the exact same thing as Whole Foods would have in a mom and pop Daring Camp's tiny.
But it is
grocery
more
store.
expensive than the other stuff.
It's very similar in pricing to what it is here.
Yeah.
Not the organic produce, because
Yeah.
the organic produce, I don't know how they do it. It's like, how are you getting that from California over
I
to
know.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania in less
I know.
than 36
Yeah.
hours or something? But at the exact same time, that means people want it.
Yeah.
That's what's changing. I think if more people do that, and more people go and try to buy organic foods or buy single ingredient, like, hey, like black bean pasta, check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a crazy thing. The simpler the better, as you keep saying.
Yeah, and I mean one of the most basic things we learned, in school and afterwards was like, the majority of your groceries should be bought just like around the outside of the grocery store, not in any of the aisles.
Never even thought
That's
about
so smart, 'cause they always put the produce on the outside.
Whoa.
That's funny.
Right?
Like-
Like the
Yeah.
simple things are
Mind
so
blown.
But that's kind of what it is, just kind of bringing it back to simple, because our bodies, because of all the processed food and all the quick eating that we're doing, stopping and grabbing like fast food, quick food, whatever, it's keeping our bodies in almost a constant state of inflammation.
Yeah.
And, it's getting harder for our bodies to even recognize the food, to break it down and process it and use it for any kind of good. And then when our body doesn't recognize the food, that's why gluten is suddenly an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that gluten was ever an issue. Over in France, they eat gluten all day long, and it's not an issue because
Yeah.
it's not processed the way it is here.
Yeah.
Everything's so overprocessed, our body doesn't recognize it, and then it automatically sets off an inflammatory response because it's then seen as a toxin in your body.
Yeah.
So if you, last tough question here.
Okay.
If you have to give one piece of fitness advice, what is it? Like, what is it to your average person trying to get in shape?
Just make up your mind to do it. I mean, it's all here. You know what I mean? Just make up your mind to set a time. I'm going to get up at 7 a.m. and go for a 20-minute walk every day. Just make up your mind.
Yeah.
It's just, it really is that simple, but it's all up here. Just decide, write it down, set the small goals. Small goals are just as good as the big goals.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
I totally agree with that. That's amazing. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
thank you,
thank you for
Kurt,
having
joining
me.
us as well. You guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Shaka Strong. Kurt, where can they find you?
Curran Blevins all across the board, every social network there is.
And the gorgeous Annie Parker, where can they find you?
Sassy Fit Chick on everything.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining us.
From executives Keven Undergaro, Dario Christie, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.